So how to stand out in job interviews with great video tools, that's what we're talking about right now. So if you've got a remote interview, it's a great opportunity to bring in the special touches that only QCam Video Pencil and Shoot can provide through your Apple devices. So, where else can you wave a magic wand like this? I found this in the supermarket. Video Pencil users will recognise this as the magic wand tool. So you can, well, obviously you're not doing that in an interview, unless you get really comfortable. So you can elevate your responses to interview questions with drawings, images, screen shares, and even video, all without slowing things down by asking for Zoom screen sharing permissions and things like that. With Video Pencil, you don't have to gesticulate when you're answering. You can actually just clearly communicate. So I wanted to start today by talking about my background a little bit again. I've done it once, I'm going to keep doing it probably. So I understand that I'm a white man with a sort of posh-ish British accent. I got good grades at school. I've got a degree in physics from a decent university in the UK. So, my job interview advice should be taken with more than just a grain of salt. I go into any interview situation with a lot of advantages, and basically nobody's consciously or unconsciously making negative assumptions about me in the same way as people from a different kind of background or gender, or they tend to listen to me when I talk, which is definitely a male privilege thing, and I just have a million invisible privileges that most people don't have. So just bear that in mind. But what I want to say, so it might surprise you to hear that after leaving university, I found it almost impossible to find my first job after university. And this is not because I suffered a lot of rejections, but because I was too afraid to even try. I had my degree, but I'd barely scraped through with a third, and I had a lot of other insecurities. And even with a pretty well-stacked deck, as I've said before, things still felt just impossible to me. And this is all deeply entangled with an experience that I talked about in my recent live stream, in my live event, so just on the website you can watch that. But to summarise here, when your own mother rejects you at a young age, it leaves you with a pretty deep-seated fear of rejection, and I was still figuring that out. So I ended up having to ask a friend for help, and instead of coming over to help me make some phone calls, he actually called a couple of agencies, and this was long before the age of AI-powered online recruitment databases. This was 2000, 2001. He basically ended up pretending to be me on the phone, so I just had to keep up the ruse when they called me back. And then it was a funny thing, I'd overproduced my CV and they just basically called me back and said, can you do me one that I can fax? This is crazy. But yeah, because I was so lacking in confidence that I completely overdid it. I've got to make it the most magical thing anyone's ever seen. But yeah, once I was over that first hurdle, I soon turned that data entry job into a more technical role, and I was able to start growing professionally. So this is all to say, I understand that fear of judgment and rejection that goes along with putting yourself on the line when you need a job, even though I have all those advantages. And at that time, I was desperate to find a way, and this is coming into the point a bit more, I was desperate to find a way to make things easier next time. So I asked my grandpa, a Churchillian CEO he was actually CEO of a West German key manufacturing company, and so I asked him for his advice on it, and he'd seen what I was doing, I was doing a lot of tech stuff, connecting systems and all this stuff, and he was like, wow, you've really done some stuff there. So, and he was someone that was never impressed by anything, so that was nice. But he handed me a little leatherette binder with embossed metallic text on it saying something along the lines of interview advice for executives. So I had this little this executive interview guide. And two pieces of advice from that little binder stuck with me over all these years. The first one is, don't think of it as an interview, think of it as a meeting to find out if you can help each other, right? If you're going to be able to work together, if it's going to benefit you both, And then the second part is your CV is the agenda for that meeting. So you can use your CV to structure the meeting and guide the conversation towards whatever you want to talk about. So if you've ever been stuck on I've got to put my CV together, I'm going to call it a CV, not a resume because I'm British, so whenever I say CV, that means resume. But you can use that, you know, like if you're not sure what order to put things in, and like you're sort of looking at these structures and examples on the internet. I know a lot of the time you're just filling out a web form these days, but if you do have like a printed a PDF that you can send them, then you're going to be able to structure that around what you want to talk about, or find a way on the web form to do it. God, you know, it's been a while since I've done a job interview, thankfully. But yeah, I don't believe you have to be a high-flying executive to benefit from either of these ideas. And to take it from Larry David in Curb Your Enthusiasm, here in this clip, he clearly articulates the need to get out of the usual power imbalance of a job interview and just flip it.
Hey, you want to get this job today?
Damn right I do.
Can I give you a little tip? Huh?
Let's do it.
You're gonna go in. He'll be up here, okay? You're down here, right? He's on top. He's asking you the questions.
Uh-huh.
And then all of a sudden the interview starts. He asks some questions. You answer some questions. And then you start asking him the questions, and you flip it. Now he's trying to impress you.
Turn that around on him.
Turn it around on him.
Topsy-turvy that mother.
Yeah.
So yeah, like an interview isn't a one-way thing, right? You're not just proving that you're good enough to do the job. They need to prove that it's worth your while taking the job. The second piece of advice is like where you're guiding the agenda. This is where the video tools come in. So here's like how to think about structuring your interview / your meeting. Right, so when you structure your CV, as I've said, I'm British, I'm calling it a CV. It means curriculum vitae, which is obviously a much better word than resume, according to... Anyway, listen. So just put things in the order you want to talk about them. Create an agenda that allows you to talk about the things that cast you in a good light, and that, you know, you might make different versions depending on the job. So if you want to talk about your academic achievements, something you did that was cool at university or something, then just start with the education and put some bullet points for the good things that you did. And just keep going and make sure that first page, you know, there's a lot of talk about like how many pages should a resume have. And I think like, as long as that first page kind of tells you enough, I don't think it's a problem having a couple more pages if you've had loads of jobs, right? But just make sure that what's kind of going on there kind of like guides the eye to like the key points that you want to talk about. And just again, like I've been a manager myself, like in the past, and so I've done a lot of interviewing, and I just, you know, how does it work from the other side? Well, basically, usually HR will send you a stack of CVs, and then you'll go, okay, yeah, that one, maybe that one, okay, which you'll look them over, and then HR will sort of book in a few interviews, and you'll sort of basically forget about it until 10 minutes before the candidate arrives. So you grab their CV from the pile and you give it another quick look. What's their name? Okay. And that's about all the preparation you end up doing, really. So you really are taking your cues directly from the CV, because usually when a company is hiring, it's because the team is massively overworked. And so it's unlikely that they'll have had time to do much more preparation than that. Basically, like, you know, oh, hiring a new person, oh, that's going to be expensive. The company's going to do everything they can not to do that. So I think you're generally going to be interviewing with overworked people that don't have time to prepare. So, you know, make sure you have, you know, again, your CV is guiding those points. So how does video come in? Well, because you've structured that meeting, now you can start preparing some extras to bring in over the course of the conversation, the video chat, right? You can remind yourself what you want to say and come prepared with images to illustrate key points. So basically what we're going to do here is we're going to start by setting up QCam Presenter on the Mac, install Video Pencil on your iPad and Shoot on your iPhone. And there's a guide for that. So I'm not going to go into that here, but there's a link, there's a tutorial connected to this video. And if you saw it from the email, you'll be on the page already. But there's a guide that's like how to set it up. But basically you're going to stick QCam on your Mac, you're going to put these two apps on your iPhone, iPad, and then you're going to mount your iPhone sort of above your laptop so you can use it as a screen and a camera, and then your iPad just is, you know, your kind of your whiteboard like that, and that's just all going to like automatically work. So, and then you're just going to select QCam as your camera and mic in your meeting software. And so there's lots of other guides on how to do that, but I'm now going to kind of talk about why you're going to do that and what you can do now. So, first thing is you're going to get a crisper image. You're going to get a cleaner camera feed, right? Because most candidates will be using their laptop's ugly built-in camera. I don't care what Apple says about these FaceTime HD cameras. They're just not great. And that's because they can't really put amazing cameras in a laptop because it's just a laptop, right? Whereas a phone is a camera and they can like ramp up the price by putting good cameras in phones. So when you start your meeting, you know, looking crisp and clear using your iPhone's camera from a flattering angle as well. It's not sort of from under your chin, like you're not kind of like, oh, hello, and then you're not, you know, you'll be from a flattering angle and you'll be making better eye contact. So that's already going to give you a little bit of a boost. And how does eye contact work? Well, QCam's program feed lets you select your zoom window, and then you can see that on your phone. So your camera will be on your phone screen. Basically, what you guys like, your camera's like that, and then the person you're talking to is here, and your camera's there, and that means that when you're going to be looking there, right? If this is you, you're going to be looking that way instead of like down at your laptop screen when they're talking, which is usually the situation. And again, that just makes you look more interested and more engaged. It's just for free. You're already looking a little bit more trustworthy and a little bit more interested, right? And a little bit more, you know, like they can sort of see you. They'll probably be looking down at their screen and not making very good eye contact, and you'll be like, oh, I've gone to all this effort, but you know that's not your problem. Like you're going to be sort of like elevated in that way. With Video Pencil, you can just, you know, say you do just want to quickly describe something. I was like, you know, don't gesticulate. You can just, you know, say they ask you about something a bit more complex. You can say, okay, well, we had this team over here, you know, team A, and then you had this other team, you know, like DevOps. You know, you can say, well, this was like 5 people, and like I had to sort of figure out how to coordinate between these. And you know, you can quickly start to bring things, you know, sort of explain things in a way that would be quite awkward to do. I mean, you could have your notepad out and sort of like give it to them if you're in person, but you're not going to be able to do it on the phone. But now that you're on the webcam, it's just really effortless to do that sort of thing. And then they're going to be like, okay, that was cool. And then, of course, like with QCam, you can smoothly slide out a blank board to draw on. So if you haven't got a nice clean background like me, so I've just got this nice clean blue background, so I can kind of draw in any of these areas. But if you've got sort of like your, you know, some stuff behind you, it will kind of crop you over to one side, and you'll have just a big space to draw in. So you can just do that if you need to, and that's just something I'm really excited about in QCam 3. And then, so how do you exploit your agenda? So you know what you're doing. So this is actually where you can create a bit of a script in QCam. So QCam lets you create a sequence of smart, basically cue cards that you can put in a list, and like, you know, let me get back on script. So if you want to refine your answers to the most likely questions, you can create cue cards for yourself to trigger your memory. So here's what that might look like. So here is QCam. This is a cue card. This is another one. So I might have something like, okay, if they ask me about this prototype I did for Newham, then I've just put in like a little bullet point in the CV, but when they ask me about it, I've got some more notes so I can kind of make sure I don't forget anything. They were developing a new letting scheme. They seemed to be being taken in by some big tech companies that were going to do a pretty clunky version of the technology, and I saw that there was a better way that it could be done. So I made a little prototype, and then we took that to the council, and then they sort of said, okay, yeah, we want this. And then that allowed us to go forwards with the thing. So I would obviously explain it more clearly in a job interview. But yeah, like I now know that I'm not going to forget anything, and I'm not going to get like overwhelmed. And I can have, you know, I've got another one. Here's another project I did. You know, I can put my notes in there. You can put your notes in so that you can sort of remember roughly what you want to talk about. And all those notes will appear directly on your iPhone screen. And so you can flesh out those talking points while keeping your CV concise. And you'll be able to see the interview the whole time, but you'll just have your notes there. So they're going to be like, wow, he really confidently knows his stuff. But really, you're kind of like, you know, like you're getting some help behind the scenes. It's almost unfair, you know, like the advantage you've got thanks to QCam. And what I've done here is, like, this is where you start, they might be a bit more taken aback. I've added a slide with like a picture of what I'm talking about. So you could do that. Like, you could just sort of like chuck it. If you know you're going to be talking about a thing, and you know it's a bit hard to explain, and you can't really sketch it, but you've got a picture of it, why not just like make a little card, put a picture there, it sort of comes in, fills the screen, you're down there picture in picture. And now, like, if you do get onto the subject of this, then when you press next, it's actually going to bring up that picture, and you're going to be able to, add a couple of notes so you can remember which things to point out. You're going to be able to come in with the laser pointer as well and say, hey, right, this was this part, this was this part, this was this part, and you're just like, you know, who else is doing that in a job interview? Like, who else is able to do that? Like, they're not having to like hurriedly like try and make sense of what you're talking about, which is probably some deep technical field or some area where this works differently in their company. You're taking away all that effort of understanding how impressive what you did was, right? And you're just able to show them that stuff really, really clearly. And the great thing is, like, you don't need to interrupt the flow of the conversation to bring in stuff like this. You don't have to be like, oh, yeah, it'd be really good to show you. Can you give me screen sharing permissions on Zoom? They're like, oh, I'm not sure where to do that. Do you have to be an admin? Or, and you're just like wasting time in the conversation. This way, you can just like bring stuff in and you're kind of ready. But, let's talk about how you navigate those slides, because we don't really want to give away the game by letting the interviewer realize that we've got a prepared presentation. So everything we say sort of needs to feel like a natural part of the conversation. You don't want to just be like robotically navigating through a deck that you prepared, not even listening to what they're asking you, right? And again, like, be careful. Like, you might have don't be too specific in your notes, because they might ask you a question, then you sort of go off onto your script and you're like, no, that's not really what we are. So this is not like a presentation. This is giving yourself a little bit of a boost. So you've got to sort of, be careful with that. So usually in a presentation, like I'm giving now, I'm just hitting next, next, next to run through the script. But in an interview, you probably need to jump around a bit more. So in QCam's presentation mode, you can, you can open this sidebar here, and you can, you can jump to any of these slides automatically just by clicking on it. Now, the thing with that is that the card previews, especially if you've just got like text on them, it doesn't actually give you a lot to go on there. Like, actually, it's probably a bug that you can't even see the numbers on the cards. You should at least be able to see 1, 2, 3, 4. So I will fix that. But probably in this situation, that might not be the easiest thing. But since you could always just stay out of presentation mode and select the next card by pressing by just select it and then press present. So what we're doing here is we've just clicked on, we're back in out of presentation mode. We can select that card and then just hit start, and that's going to start on that card. And you can do Command R. So there's keyboard shortcuts for this, so you don't have to be like, so you can just click Command R and that's going to come up with that, and you're going to know where you are again. And then just exit out again with Command dot, like full stop period. Command dot will sort of exit the current presentation. So, because you're not really giving a presentation, you're just like trying to bring up those notes into your eye line so that you don't have to so you don't forget to say something. But you can get more advanced with this by using deep links to cards with something like Keyboard Maestro or a Stream Deck, if you're comfortable with doing that. So you can right click on a card and just go copy deep link, and then like set that up on your function keys and like learn that. If you really want to like put a lot of preparation in, you can just make it so that you can quickly jump to something. And I would say like jump to the first card of, but you might jump to the first card with your notes, and then when you press next, it'll kind of like show the picture. Like, don't just and also you don't want to be jumping through the deck just by going left and right, because otherwise they're gonna see all your other slides and they're gonna the jig is going to be up. But here's how you could present a particular card by using different Stream Deck buttons. So I've got a Stream Deck here, and what you can do is just create a website link. You've paste in that URL from, so the URL is going to look something like this from QCam, and that's going to jump to a specific card, but then you can give that a title for yourself. And then on the Stream Deck, you're going to, it's sometimes a bit hard to see, but you can even customize the icons on there, which, you can do that down here. You can change the icon there. So you could like set up your Stream Deck to be, to kind of like let you jump around those points. And again, like, you're able to do that because you kind of set the agenda with the interview. Now, obviously, like, they're going to be asking some stuff that's not on your CV, but this is the stuff that you can talk about. And then, like, at least when they ask you the stuff that you weren't sure about, you can kind of be ready with you can think it through with your Apple Pencil and all that kind of stuff as well. But yeah, it's really important that you don't go overboard with this. So don't be like me with my first overproduced, deeply confusing CV just because you're trying to be invulnerable. Keep the bells and whistles to a minimum, or things are going to start to feel gimmicky and distracting. You just want to sprinkle a little bit, right? And if you did want to show a video, then just sort of ask first, probably. Like, you know, I've actually got a video about that I can just bring up if that's okay. And then they get the choice. It's not like suddenly they're like watching a video and they're like, I thought we were doing an interview here. But you know, if you do that, make sure original sound for musicians on Zoom is enabled, or they're not going to hear anything and you're going to look a bit silly. So yeah, a little touch in this situation, a little touch of this stuff in this situation is going to be more than enough to stand out, because it's unlikely that any other candidates will have the ability to even sketch something or bring in a picture the way QCam lets you do. And finally, like, don't, you know, practice. Please don't launch into an important job interview with an unfamiliar set of technical tools that you've never used before. So you can use QCam's recording features to run through your talking points and make sure that everything will work the way you need it to. And even better, like, call up a friend on Zoom or whatever the company interviewing you is going to be using, and just like do a little run through with them, so that you're kind of like testing the entire like microphone, camera, like Zoom connection, like original sound for musicians, all that kind of stuff. Just make sure you've at least done it on a video call before you like jump into this high stakes interview situation. And again, like, that's another reason, just really try and keep it to a minimum, because if you start like overproducing it, you just create more scope for problems, and they haven't really come to watch you troubleshoot your video setup. But yeah, you can start practicing before you've even applied for any jobs. And I think with QCam, you might even start looking forward to your next job interview, if you can imagine that. By the way, do you like, I've worn a tie today because it's like job interviews. So that was job interviews with QCam. And I think that's, you know, we're gonna park it there for this week. So if you enjoy this sort of thing, come and join us on Discord, squares.tv/Discord.